Everyone, welcome back to Mama Genius Hub podcast / festival. Today we are about to bring on DJ Nicholson. And what I have to say about this is you want a new perspective on how to do things with your kids and how to adjust their learning styles a little bit and how to give them just a new take on things and change that perspective for them, and especially if they're struggling. She's the woman to help you do that. And we're about to bring her on. And I am so excited by that. And here we go into the intro. Welcome to Mama Genius Hub podcast, where we support moms with big dreams from entrepreneurship to personal aspirations. I'm your host, Michelle DeKaiser, and I'm here to help you unlock your potential in all areas of life. Join us as we explore strategies for thriving in motherhood while pursuing the dreams, the key to actually unlocking your genius. Subscribe now and embark on a journey to realize your fullest potential. And here we're about to have DJ Nicholson come on. She's an educator, coach, and trainer with a lifelong passion for education and ensuring that neurodiverse kids are engaged and supported in their educational environment. DJ's superpowers include creating unique learning options for kids, problem solving for their success, and leading with kindness and compassion. I am so excited to get inspiration from DJ today. Hi, DJ. Welcome to the Mama Genius podcast. We're so excited to have you today.
Hello. I'm super happy to be here.
I know we have so much to dive into today because honestly, she's the woman to give you new perspective, especially if you feel like you're struggling with that. So I just want to dive straight in, DJ. What's your why behind wanting to do this for others?
Oh my goodness. I feel like my why is huge and it's shifted so much in the last couple of years. But my why really is my passion and desire to help moms and help parents with just best supporting their neurodivergent kids. Is I had a neurodivergent sibling. And I watched my parents, of course, this was back in the 70s and 80s, and I watched my parents struggle immensely with finding support, finding resources, and being really frustrated with not knowing what to do. So I, had a sibling with that was on the spectrum, autism spectrum, was diagnosed with ADHD, had a speech and language disorder, and it created this lack of resource and lack of support created complete chaos in my home growing up. And so, now as an adult in my middle age, I look back on that and I think how different things would have been if my parents had had support, if my sibling had support, if we had support as a family structure without the chaos and the trauma that ensued with all of it. And so, like you shared in my intro, I'm a former teacher. I have been a instructional educational coach for 10 years. I'm a trainer. I share all of my information and knowledge with teachers as well as parents. But I feel like my big passion really stems from my why in trying to help parents and moms know what to do when they have a kid that is neurodivergent, that thinks differently and learns differently and experiences the world differently. And it's just so important to me now in 2024. There are resources, there are supports, there are people like me out there that are supporting parents and really wanting the best for all kids. And I tell people all the time, like, I truly believe every kid can be successful with the right supports. And when parents have their person that they can kind of go to and talk to and openly share some of the struggles that they're having with their neurodivergent kids in school, it just makes a big difference to know that there's somebody out there that's in your court helping their kids. So this comes from a place of passion and love and purpose for me. So, it's all about kids. It's always been about kids for me. And so, I tell people all the time that, like, this is the proverbial hill I will die on because it's been a lifelong journey. It really has been a lifelong journey, and I'm so happy and blessed to be in a position now where I can help moms.
I love that so much. Though I do have to ask, so I know you were talking about that there weren't as many resources in the 70s versus like 2024 now, but I have to ask, so as a mom or someone who might have this, it can be a bit overwhelming to go through and figure out what your kids need. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It is very, very overwhelming. And I think part of the overwhelm comes from a place of unknown, not knowing what questions to ask, not knowing what the process is, especially if you've got a kiddo, that would benefit from an IEP or a 504. The unknown of all of that, because that's just a completely different language almost. It's just different terminology, and there's so much to learn. And I think part of the overwhelm too comes from a place of fear. It comes from a place of fear and judgment. And I think that, when moms can have, I always, you shared even in my bio, I come from a place of kindness and compassion because, I get it. I've seen it, as a sibling, and I saw it in my family, and I saw it as a teacher, and all of the things. When parents and moms can have someone to reach out to ask the questions, or even when they don't know what questions to ask, to have that person. So if a mom comes to me with overwhelm and says, "Hey, my kiddo just got an IEP, and it's for autism spectrum disorder or ADHD. I don't know what to do." If someone comes to me and says, "I don't know what to do," I can say, "That's okay that you don't know what to do, because I do." And so
Mm.
it's supporting moms in building their knowledge so they can feel confident and empowered when they're sitting in these educational planning meetings, in these IEP meetings, when the school is talking about, what's best for their kid. I mean, moms, come on, we know, like, you know your kid better than anybody else in the whole world. And so, you can come to me with that overwhelm, knowing how well you know your kid, and bring me like all of the strengths, all the good things, all of the everything that you want for your kid. And I can say, okay, so there are supports that you can ask for that are going to help your child be awesome in school, and awesome in their learning success, because together we can come up with the right supports for kids. And so often in the coaching that I do with moms, it's getting into those deep conversations, and being very, like, it's the problem solving process of figuring out what's going to work for each individual kid. And I use the word problem solving very loosely, because kids are never a problem. But when we do that problem solving and the brainstorming and kind of that brain dumping of all the things about a kid, it's then that we can get really solution focused. We can create solutions where kids can be successful if they're not reading on grade level yet, if they're not ready to sit in an assigned quote unquote spot yet. We can, though, there's so many workarounds that I want parents to make sure that they know that there's an infinite number of possibilities for things that are going to help their kid in school.
I love that so much. And I love the use of the word yet, and how we can really build on that and really see all the processes of what is, like, what the possibilities truly are. I mean, I love how you use the word problem solving in terms of, it's not really necessarily a problem, but it's just, it's figuring out how to make it work for that kid. And right after this break, we're going to go into the details of how to actually do that, because I know DJ has some great tips for us. Attention mompreneurs. Do you feel like you're constantly juggling the responsibilities without a moment to yourself? It's time to pause and reflect with our Mama Genius quiz. Tailored for busy mamas like you, this quiz will help you identify what's blocking your path and inspire you to harness your unique strengths. Transform how you manage life and business, find your rhythm, and ignite your joy. Visit mamageniushub.com today to discover your Mama Genius. Again, that's mamageniushub.com. And we're back. So DJ, I really want to dive into some specifics. I know you have some stories, and she's been part of the Mama Genius Festival giving such great advice, and not even the word advice. I want to get away from the word advice. Again, I love how she talks about, because you're tailoring, figuring out what's going to work for this kid, this classroom, this moment in time, because things are going to adjust, change as well. So where do we start? But I want to start with just the idea of the flexible learning spaces that you've talked about a little bit, and how moms can just take this first idea of see the possibilities. I think that's what this really is about, opening up those possibilities to what can be. So I'd love for you to start there.
Yeah, so thank you for mentioning flexible learning spaces. That's one of my favorite things. The other one is assistive technology and how that kind of works into helping kids be successful too. So the idea of flexible learning spaces and flexible seating, whether you are, a homeschool mom or working on homework with kids, or whether your kid is in a traditional, public or private or charter school, the idea that we have to think about what the end goal is. So, what is the outcome that we want for our kids? So, just taking homework as an example, do you want kids to finish their homework, or do you want them to sit at the dining room table? And so, those are two very different things. So, it's part of, kind of letting go of that structure that you have a little bit. I mean, loosely restructuring and giving your kids that, voice and choice, that in giving them options about where they can do their work, do their homework, do their reading, so they feel the most focused, the most settled, with the greatest amount of attention. So it doesn't take away from homework or anything like that, but we're giving kids options. So saying to your kid, hey, I really want you to finish your homework, but you don't seem comfortable sitting at the dining room table. I'm going to give you some options on where you can work on your homework or do your reading. You can sit at the kitchen table, you can lay on your beanbag in your bedroom, or you can sit on the couch. Because I feel like, and that's just in its very, very simplest form, the idea of flexible spaces to have kids be the most productive. Because
I love that. I just want to throw in one more. So my daughter has a loft bed, and so down below she keeps getting all these squishmallows. And now that she has a loft bed, she's actually made like a squishmallow pile that she will read on and do all of her reading and stuff onto. And so it's like her own little beanbag that she made. I actually inserted myself and decided I was going to read next to her. And so the two of us will lay on the squishmallows together and do a little bit of reading. And I let her pick the book I was going to read.
I love that. So yeah, what an honor to be invited into her space like that, first of all. But she created a space for herself that feels comfortable, that she loves to be in, that feels safe, and gives her like a little secure place to read. And so really, Michelle, that's a great example. So it's the difference between, can my kid lie in a pile of squishmallows and read for 30 minutes, or am I trying to make them sit at the dining room table where they're only going to read for 5 because they're so uncomfortable and not I could talk about this, just go on and on about this, but part of it is how do we help kids feel grounded and centered and ready to learn? I think that's the big key here, is how do we support them in being ready to learn? And whenever I'm speaking with teachers and doing professional development for teachers, I'll say, because I will get some pushback from teachers, but I'll say, you can have two outcomes here for kids that are like extra wiggly and need that room to move and need to be sitting flat on the floor. to be grounded and settled, you've got two learning outcomes. They can either sit in that blue plastic chair or they can learn about the solar system. But you're not going to get both. Guarantee you, you're not going to get both with those kids that don't feel settled and grounded and ready to learn in the blue plastic chair. So what do you want? And the teachers, invariably say, well, I want them to learn about the solar system. I'm like, okay, we can move forward from here. How do we support kids in learning about the solar system or whatever else they're learning about in a way that keeps them focused and engaged? And it's definitely not about throwing structure and processes and rules out the window. It's about looking at kids and really considering kids, whether you're a teacher or a parent or any kind of adult in their life. Like, how are we supporting kids? And there's nothing wrong with giving them some options on where to be. And
Well, I feel like I know the story already, so I want you to share with the audience. But I believe, let me just refresh your memory a little bit. I think it was a girl, and I think she had like moved around and like had some sort of round seat or something, but changed the whole dynamic of the classroom. And
oh yeah.
okay, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to refresh mine.
Okay, yeah. She's one of my favorite little kids ever. So yeah, so Lena, she was a kiddo in the third grade, severe ADHD, zero focus. She was the kid that on her IEP it said increased need for movement, and the teacher was very frustrated by the fact that she needed this increased movement, and the teacher didn't understand really what that meant. And so I shared with the mom, I said, it might be something as simple as changing out her seat in the classroom. So let me support you in bringing that to into the IEP team, and just asking, sometimes the need for increased movement is not, it's not running around, it's not doing jumping jacks in the back of the classroom. And so what I suggested was, let's give her a different thing to sit on in the classroom. So we changed out her traditional blue plastic chair to one of those giant exercise balls. So in with this exercise ball, we taught her how she could use it, because I think that's important. We don't just give kids things and expect that they know what to do. So we gave her this giant exercise ball that she could sit on, kneel on, bounce on, and it was incredible the level of focus shift for this kid. She didn't need big gross motor movement. She just needed to be able to bounce on this ball or kneel on this ball in order to have that sensory input, that movement, in order for her to get more focused. And this is a kid, I mean, I loved her just dearly. She was wonderful, but she went from not being able to write for more than 60 seconds to being able to write for 10 minutes, and then have a conversation with her teacher about what it was that she wrote. And so it was a massive shift. And
Wow.
this child moved all day long on this ball, but it helped her immensely. And I think that when we can give kids permission to sit on something like this or be in a different spot, and make it okay for every kid. And I'm not saying that every kid in a classroom gets a big giant gymnastic ball, but what I'm saying is that when we can, let kids know, and parents and teachers, that everybody learns differently. Everybody learns differently and thinks differently and needs something different to feel focused and settled and grounded. And it was not a big deal that Lena sat on a big giant ball and nobody else did. There was just such a shift for this child to be able to do that. And it worked for her tests and her quizzes. It worked in every area of her little learning life.
Well, I mean, I even think about how companies are doing that as well and creating different ways of living and being. And so, like, this is such a great idea for all kids. But I love how, I know yesterday in your talk, I believe it was, I was watching how you were talking about that it's also about teaching those structures before implementing them, not just saying, oh, she gets this ball without actually introducing it and bringing something into it. And so how do you set up those structures then? How would you advise either at home or in the classroom to set up those parameters or bring those conversations to how she's getting this ball, but what are some of the other options for the other kids, or however you want to take that?
So that's kind of a two-part question. So, in the home, when parents are supporting their kids with some, more flexible ideas, it's about just having a conversation with your kid. And then when they decide, some reasonable alternatives of places to sit, giving them explicit instructions on how to use the space, because I think it's important that we can't go into this just giving kids free reign over everything, but to honor who they are as little people and helping them know how to use something. And then I feel like in the classroom, it's about, it's about community, classroom community and culture, that when we respect all kids as individuals and we give all kids the opportunity to learn in a way that makes sense for them. So even if we have, kind of a typical kid that's really really antsy and is just, for whatever reason, maybe there's something going on at home, and we can say to them, hey, if you're feeling antsy, you can go ahead and stand in the back of the room. If you need to like move around a little bit, that's okay, as long as you're listening, you're paying attention, and you're involved in what we're doing. Again, it goes back to the outcome.
I love that so much. I love how you bring that together. And I know that you talk about adaptive technology too. And I just keep coming back to the beginning when we talked about the 70s versus 2024. But even with all, like we talked about the overwhelm and all of it. So when we look at adaptive technology, what are some of the ways that a mom who has no idea what that even means can look into it to support their kid?
Okay, so assistive technology,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay, no worries. Assistive technology, really, in its simplest form, are classroom learning tools, resources, and computer programs that are going to help your kid maximize their learning and be able to engage with what they're learning in the classroom. So, like a high tech example of assistive technology would be, like, say, for example, you have a kid that's not reading on grade level yet. Say they're in the fourth grade, they're reading on a first grade level, they're struggling with what is being taught in the classroom. We can support them with assistive technology with text to speech. Text to speech programs are readily available, but it's a matter of knowing that they exist, so we can help kids with that. So rather than having kids just simply read something that they're not capable of reading yet, we can support that reading, support that learning with a text to speech program that's going to read that material to them while they're following along. So that's a high tech example. And then, like, a low or no tech example of assistive technology is simple things like a classroom, a timer that they can sit on the corner of their desk. If the teacher says, hey, you've got 5 more minutes left to work, set a little timer on the corner of the desk and kids can see the passage of time. A graphic organizer, just a piece of paper that maybe has circles or squares on it, or that's a big topic too, graphic organizers, but something to help kids organize their thoughts, plan out what they want to write about. There are hundreds and hundreds of assistive technology resources and tools and computer programs that I'd love to share with parents. So
We actually have a question from the audience, which is asking, how can we get teachers to incorporate these into the classroom and help our kids?
So that's a great question. And I think, for the majority of teachers, if they have the information, they're happy to do it. But what I'm finding, now that I'm not, associated with a district anymore, is that there's just a lack of knowledge for teachers. There's a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of training. So that's something that I do. I've done it locally in my area, is to train teachers on how to use assistive technology and what is available out there. So if you have a kiddo in a school that doesn't understand assistive technology, ask if there's somebody in the district or in your school, community that could provide some training. And I am absolutely available to do trainings like that. I think that that's between the flexible seating and spaces and assistive technology. Those are two pieces that I think really are missing when it comes to supporting our neurodivergent kids. So happy to have a side conversation with whoever asked that question. So reach out to me if you need to.
I love that so much. And on that note, we were going to ask you our final question for today. What is a common misconception about motherhood you think holds many moms back from truly stepping into their genius?
So I think it's an old mindset when it comes to having a kid with a disability, a neurodivergency, an IEP, a 504. It's that the negative connotation that to me is just simply an old way of thinking. But it's shifting your mindset from, oh no, my kid has a disability, or my kid doesn't think like other kids, and feeling really defeated, to shifting towards, you know what, my kid is different. I'm going to celebrate the mess out of my kid because they're amazing, and shifting into that like growth mindset, wanting to learn more mindset, and what can I do to really help my kid, because my kid is amazing just the way they are.
Oh, I love that so much. You answered both parts without me even having to read it. So I'm going to put you backstage for just a moment. I'm going to read some, going to go through my notes quickly and see what takeaways we came up with today as I was writing my notes for you. And then we'll bring you up before we do that though, why don't you tell everyone how they can get a hold of you before I forget?
Okay, so my business is called Inclusivology. It's the study of inclusion, how we can get every kid included in their own learning. So you can find me at inclusivology.com. You can also find loads of information on my website with resources and parent support and teacher support and all kinds of good things. So inclusivology.com.
And you did have a free gift for the audience, if I wasn't mistaken, right?
Oh, I do. Yes. My free gift is called the Parent Playbook. It is like a starter guide to all things learning on your kid's IEP. So it's more information broken down about present levels, specially designed instruction, assistive technology, all of that good stuff in parent-friendly terms. And you can find that on my website, or you can go to inclusivology.com/get-my-playbook.
Get in your playbook right now. We'll be right back with DJ. So this was such an amazing podcast with going through the different ways of how to look at children differently, right? So let me give away some of my top takeaways first. Was we talked about that overwhelm. And part of that just comes from not knowing what questions or what processes you can do. And it comes from that fear, that judgment, as well as we're doing that. But how do you release that? And so that leads us into number 2, which is really that problem solving process where we get a brain dump and we figure out, as she was talking about, and really focus on what are some of those workarounds? What can we do with that IEP? What can we do with our teachers as well? Which also leads us into number 3, which is one of those, is that flexible learning spaces. Think about as your kids do your homework as well as home versus also the kids in school as well. And you looked at the one girl who was able to do so much more with that bouncy ball. And so it's really figuring out what are those ideas. And when we work together and figure what's missing, that's where we fill in the pieces. And then number 4 is really giving permission to the kids to make some of those choices, that they can decide where might they want to study, where might they want to do this, and then coming together and making those illicit instructions so they know how to use that space that you've agreed upon. Again, it's not just give them free reign, but it's about coming to an agreement with them. And then that leads us into the assistive technology, where there are so many tools. That's our takeaway number 5. but it's learning what they are. So even helping your teachers who in school might learn more about it from you, and you doing some of the research or working with someone like DJ and figure out what will work for your kid, and then bringing that to the IEP meeting. Some of those, I know I as a former teacher, I used to be in some of those IEP meetings, and I know they can feel overwhelming and you feel unsupported with so many people just staring at you, not sure what to do. That's where getting the help and asking in groups like this and getting that support really comes into play. So I'm going to bring DJ back up. Anything I missed? What's your final takeaway?
No, I think you covered just about everything. I love having conversations with parents about what it is that their kid needs specifically, because whether you have a kid that's autistic or has a kid that has ADHD or a learning disability, we can't cookie cutter things for kids. We have to look at what individual needs. And I'm a crazy problem solver and a crazy solution focused kind of gal. So yeah, let's chat more.
I love that. And thank you so much, DJ, for giving us a new perspective on how to guide our kids' genius. And that's truly what this is all about, is us finding our own genius and guiding theirs. The outro take. Thank you for joining us in today's episode of the Mama Genius Hub podcast. If you found value in our conversation, please share this episode with another mama who might benefit. Sharing helps us build a supportive community and reach out to more mamas like you. After all, it's more fun when we do motherhood together. Until next time, stay motivated and continue to pursue your dreams as you shine in your genius.